everyone, this is Bridget, and today we're going to be talking about how to accelerate your Starseed Awakening and increase contact. So for this particular video, we're going to be talking about how to tap into the bandwidth of that particular frequency stream. That is the key. That is like the foremost pivotal thing that we need to tune into to be able to get these activations and to have more experiences. So as you likely know, what you focus on, the energy that you put towards something, the beliefs, the information that you focus on is what you create, right? Simple law of attraction 101. And so for instance, if you are reading the Bible like all the time and like very focused and devout in that particular lens, you're probably going to have some kind of spiritual experience, or you're going to have some kind of internal experience connected through that lens. You might see angels, you might feel the presence of Jesus, right? So you're going to feel those frequencies if you're tapping into that information and those particular transmissions and those spiritual beings connected to that particular segment of spirituality. So right now, if we're wanting to connect with our starseed energy, it's like, okay, then how do we tap into that? Because we're on a planet, right? But then how do we tap into that thing that's out there? And if you've heard me before say, it starts here. This is where the contact begins, and there's so much to focus on here, but getting some nice external frequencies to then tap into it to start to unlock and activate in our internal space is really, really key. So the first thing before we get into different tips and some of my favorite ways to connect in with this bandwidth of energy is to ask the question, why? Why do we want to tap in, and why do we want to activate particularly the starseed frequency within ourselves? This is a really important question. Why are we doing this? What is the motivation behind it? Why is that important? Why is that important to ask the why? Because, well, first of all, if the why is because you want more galactic connection, you want more wholeness, you want more oneness, you want a greater context to your experience as a soul, right? Some of these intentions, you're curious, you want to explore. Some of these energies are really, really positive, and going at it from that frequency will be wonderful, and you have more availability to connect with positive beings, and so that's a really good trajectory to approach it. So part of this bandwidth exercise is, how are we even approaching the energy that we're then going to connect with? So that's the step one, and then it's like, okay, then what are we connecting with, right? So then the other why that could come up that might be more subconscious, but we have to acknowledge and we have to really address within ourselves, is that we might want to connect with this galactic starseed energy to escape, like to not be here on Earth, right? We're like, let's just go over here. So that might be one of the reasons. It might be because it's entertaining. It might be because we want, if we're really being honest with ourselves, to separate ourselves from others with a certain group identity, right? So these are some kind of the negative motivations that we might be going towards this desire with. And the reason why I bring this up as so important to kind of be honest with ourselves in, and I've had to be honest with myself in this category, is because the thing is if we have these kind of motivations underneath it, and then we start connecting, what we actually connect with because of that frequency, even if it's unconscious or subconscious, is probably not the brightest, right? We're going to orient somehow to skewed information, maybe to skewed spiritual beings or galactic beings, maybe have more, darker experiences. And so it can attract that thing. And it could be buried. And so you're like, what? Why am I having these experiences? I'm wanting to connect, but then I'm constantly connecting with, negative reptilians, or having experiences of my lab coming up. And we have to acknowledge that could be one of the reasons, is this motivation. So really asking why you are interested in connecting with these specific higher realms, these galactic realms, and that is a really good place to start. So now moving into, once we have the motivations clean and clear of our highest intent of why we want to connect, which then discerns kind of the bandwidth, right, is then we actually set our conscious intention on what we're wanting to ingest, right? And so this gets really fun. This is the really fun part, right, is scouring all kinds of things in our reality that then have those frequencies that then can create those activations within us. Now, there's many examples of what can tap you into this bandwidth. So comment below and let everyone know, let me know what has been helpful for you so that we can use that as kind of like a message board to see different ways that we can do it. So I have a list, so I'm going to read the list to you of the things that have been helpful for me. But one of the things that I'm hearing right now that's coming up really strong is it's so funny. It's meeting in person and meeting each other, because we are these incredible, hybridized beings. Humans are hybridized. And so when you meet other humans, especially ones that have this particular soul theme of bringing down these high frequencies from all different star nations and galactic spaces, just being in the presence of these people can give you that full transmission. And I feel like that is the most powerful way to experience it. So that has been my experiences. I mean, I've connected with, so many people, and just hearing their contact experiences, I'm like, I got the full transmission of what Andromeda is. So even if you don't have that particular star lineage in you, you can get the transmission of what the other ones are, and then by that, relating to it in a new way, you can see more of yourself. And so I feel like connecting with like-minded people is one of the best ways to actually activate your own starseed energy. Okay, now some of the other ones, I'm going to read them off the list because it'll just make it easier, is certain locations, right? I'm big on locations. So there's particular places that have dimensional gates that have higher extraterrestrial frequency. It just is the way that it is, and it's so palpable. So actually going to one of these places is one way to access these bandwidth, right? So the southwest of the United States is a really prime example, right? Sedona, Arizona, and Phoenix, and the Four Corners area. There's just always so much contact, and the dimensional gate allows these particular frequencies through. And particularly in some of these places too, it's connected to certain crystals that these different star beings in the past or in the future have left these encodements. So it's literally like in the encodement of the crystalline nature of the land. And then there's dimensional gates where that access is just a lot more accessible. So going to certain places, there's tons of them, okay? That's just one example, is a great way to connect with this bandwidth. Now, some of the other ways is, of course, stargazing and connecting with the heavens itself, right? Connecting with the stars and being out in them. I'm going to be doing a video that I'll post here in the next week or so that is totally about that and how you can really utilize those frequencies to go to the next level. So stay tuned for that one. But that's a really great way. Different kinds of media like Star Trek or Star Wars or some of these things hold the mythological stories of our past. Like, these stories are so deep, they're from the stars, right? And that's what is so impactful about story, and understanding that and just hearing that and feeling that story can activate so much. Now, there's skewed ones that have are not quite properly brought through, but some of these, like the original Star Wars, for instance, is fantastic, or even like the new Star Trek on ABC is actually really good. So tuning into those media, can stimulate and trigger these experiences and these memories that we've had before. And this is where, again, the motivation comes in of making sure it's clean, and then your amazing ability to discern, right? What is in alignment, what is not, and really being aware of that. And one of the things that happens if the motivation is to more so escape or have those kinds of energies is it's connected to more Luciferian beings. So you're not going to be connecting necessarily with the Palladian that you want to. You might be connecting with other false light beings. And so I suggest watching my video on that so that you can begin to understand that discernment, because it's so important as we go into this and higher levels of communication and contact and transmissions are happening for different beings. We want to make sure that it's the appropriate ones that we want to connect with. So some other examples of what you can connect with, there's certain stones like moldavite, for instance, which is what I'm wearing here, which is from off planet. And so those, just having it be from out there allows us to connect with that energy. There's amazing different channels like Lisa Royal, Bashar, right, that bring through these galactic frequencies and can really lead to massive activations of this particular, of our starseed energy. And this is what helped me do it, right, during those times. And of course, things like regression, which I did. I particularly like Bashar's work from the late 80s and the 90s and some of the early 2000s. I'm not as resonant with his work as much anymore. But again, it's all about tuning into what feels resonant for you. Others like Wendy Kennedy. I mean, there's so many out there. And the thing is that's part of the point, is there's so many out there. And so it's really about getting clear in yourself. And that's where then we are talking about, okay, the bandwidth frequencies of the external reality that you can tune into to activate within yourself, but making sure that it's not just needed to be like, this external stimuli to then stimulate the internal. Those are just kind of like, ooh, yeah, like a little glimmer to remind us to do that internal work ourselves, because all of the amazing contact can occur right here within us. Those are just a spark, right? We don't have to like glue ourselves to those particular information or those particular energies. That are just to spark what is really true and really resonant within each of us. And being aware of taking in really positive information as you're on this journey, whether it's looking into past lives or our starseed counterparts and stuff, dark stuff is going to come up. That's a part of the nature of this dualistic reality, but making sure not to stay too focused on the conspiracy and those kinds of energies is key, or else you'll start manifesting that timeline, which then might make you think that you have my lab experiences or these really negative things. And so it's important to acknowledge it, be able to look at it, but not go too deep in it. I have videos about that, so you can check that out. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, which is really interesting as we're talking about connecting with the exact bandwidth of the starseed and galactic frequencies, is the fact that actually being diverse and holistic actually accelerates your ability to connect into the starseed frequencies. So it seems counterintuitive, but over the years it is part of the case. So when you have an impulse or an excitement towards a certain thing, whatever it is, a different theme. Some of the examples for me, for instance, is like, okay, I have this impulse to start doing Qigong or certain kind of spiritual practice. And it's like, well, that has nothing to do with extraterrestrials, and our kind of like human judgments of like what actually is extraterrestrial, because people are saying that it is, but actually going deeper and realizing that, like, say, as I was doing these certain spiritual practices, I could feel very directly that those came from the stars. Like, those transmissions of certain Qigong poses were actually maybe taught to those people or channeled through. So funny enough, it ended up being connected right to the stars. Again, other examples would be my love and obsession with different sacred sites and monoliths. And again, it's like, well, that's just ancient, past. And it's like extraterrestrial technology and how much of an influence. Again, it's connected to it. So really being open to the guidance of what's coming through. And this is what the hybrid children do. This is what your galactic counterparts do and your higher self assists you in, is they're like, for instance, for me, right? It's like high vibrational food. What? Like, I thought it was supposed to be, being out on the red rocks like every night, like meditating and looking through the contact goggles to see ships. No, high vibrational food. Okay, so these things, these guidances could be counterintuitive, could be counter to what you think is going to end up getting you to the point of contact or more connection to this starseed frequency. So these things might clear us out, right, in a certain way. These certain meditations might develop an extra abilities and clarity to communicate. These certain, say, initiate teachings or sacred sites may have been influenced by extraterrestrials, or may awaken those aspects of us that then give us greater ability to connect again. So it's really important, not to judge and not to stay too kind of entrenched in almost getting like dogmatic with staying with the starseed identity, because there's so much in the full spectrum that can be utilized that can enhance that. And these are other wonderful things to connect into: the angelic realm, our ancient past, what we've already mastered, so it's really important to acknowledge that and to follow the guidance of what you're feeling called to do, because who knows how it's going to connect back up, link up, and expand you to be able to go to the next level with your particular Starseed Awakening activation. So there's so much to this. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Comment below to let me know what has helped you connect in with and accelerate your Starseed activation and awakening. Like, what are those things, so that other people can see what that has been for you, and maybe they can tap into that, because these are just a few examples, for instance, that have been helpful for me, but there's so many different ones that might resonate more with you, and that's what it's about. It's about what resonates with you. So comment below to let me know, let everyone else know what has been helpful for you. And if you like videos like this, please like and hit that subscribe button so you can get notifications every time I do new videos. I do new videos every Tuesday and Thursday, so please tune in for that, for more goodness. And I hope that you have an amazing day, and I will see you soon.